At the time of recording, the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct just happened a couple of days ago, and it might have been the most epic Nintendo Direct maybe ever, and it got me super excited for the Switch 2, but not everything was great. In fact, there was one bit of information that was rather deflating. But regardless, today I'm counting down the top 5 best and worst things we learned about the Switch 2. Now, this doesn't just have to be things in the Direct. There was a lot more stuff we learned, some things better than others, after the Direct. So this is any type of reveal, news, or information we learned about the Switch 2. Anyways, let's get into this. Hi guys, MiiKcast here, counting down the top 5 best and worst things about the Switch 2. Now before we get started, you know what to do. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell and leave a comment, or I will overcharge you for everything.
Oh, chills. Literal chills.
It was number 5. Number 5 killed my brother.
Oh my god, how about that?
I'm gonna be honest with you, there aren't a whole lot of things we learned about the Switch 2 that I didn't like. There are enough for 5 entries, and number 1 probably could have been 4 of them if I really wanted to do that, but there has been a lot of discourse surrounding game key cards. And as a physical gamer, it might be a little confusing to see this so low, as this is, on the surface, a hit to physical games. However, a lot of people don't quite seem to understand what these are. To my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the game key cards are not for every game. Remember how certain games on the Switch had that label that said it didn't actually come on a cartridge and you needed to install a game? It was just a code in a box. Well, this is kind of that, but instead of it being a box that just contains a download code, it's a box that contains a cartridge that lets you install the game. This is similar to like how PS5 and Xbox Series games worked, where you put the disc in and you have to install the game. I feel the backlash to this has been quite overblown, especially when you consider what is more worth the backlash, but it is under worse because it is a hit to physical media.
Oh, chills. Literal chills.
It was number 5. Number 5 killed my brother.
Oh my god, how about that?
I'm gonna say something that might piss people off, but I really believe it. To the people who really champion games running at 60 frames per second, I feel like that's something people pretend to care about. Like, there's certainly an argument to be had that it's 2025 and games should be at 4K 60, but a lot of people see that as a make or break, which I think that's silly. That being said though, I was absolutely shocked to see that the Switch 2 will not be running games at 4K 60, it'll be running games at 4K 120. I gotta give it up. That is a leap I was not expecting. And even being able to see the new enhanced versions of games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, 2 games I don't care what anyone says. I think they always looked absolutely stunning on the Switch, but now they look out of this world. And then the other games too, like you get enhanced versions of Mario Party and Kirby, and then, you know, Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA are pretty much cross-gen games now. Not to mention, you see all the details in Mario Kart and Donkey Kong, and this is a new feature and addition well worth it. This one is also admittedly not a big deal, but why is the screen still an LCD screen? How are we not using OLED still? We even have an OLED model for the Switch 1. Why did we go back to LCD? That literally makes no sense. Is it to nickel and dime consumers into buying a Switch 2 OLED model later at a higher price? Oh, actually, it might be. Now, onto the games. There were many games that many people predicted. And before we get into all that, I just gotta give a shout out to like all the third-party games on display. Street Fighter 6, Cyberpunk, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Split Fiction. It's awesome to see these games on the Switch too. Not to mention Dusk Bloods, Nintendo and From Software making a Bloodborne spiritual successor as a Switch 2 exclusive? Is that something that just came out of my mouth? Well, those won't be on the list. What is on the list, though, is something that wasn't on my bingo card, and that's a sequel to Kirby Air Ride. I maybe expected something Kirby related to be announced, but a sequel to Kirby Air Ride always felt like a pipe dream. That game always felt like a one and done. But now it's coming back with Kirby Air Riders, and I am pumped. It's not higher because we really didn't see much, but this is inherently exciting, and even more so knowing that Masahiro Sakurai has returned to the Kirby franchise. We associate him with Smash Bros so much, it's easy to forget that he's also the Kirby guy. But even then, this will be his first Kirby game since, well, the first Kirby Air Ride. This whole announcement was nothing short of awesome. During the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, Nintendo announced a cool little playable tech demo for the Switch 2 called the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. This wasn't really touched on in the Direct, but through the Treehouse playthrough and like some footage I saw from like the Experience event, we learned that this is a minigame collection that shows just what the Switch 2 is capable of. It's a cool little tech demo that will be a fun time to play for the Switch 2 at no extra cost. Wait, what do you mean it's a paid game? What are we doing here, Nintendo? This game screams free pack-in title. Why are we buying this game? Even if it's only like $5 or $6 or $10, very unclear how much it's gonna be, but still, how come like when the PS5 came out, Astro's Playroom was included in the console for free? What's your excuse, Nintendo? I want to share something that might shock you. I never upgraded my NSO subscription to the expansion pack. I thought it was a ripoff at first, became more worth it when they started adding DLC, and then really became worth it with GBA games, but I still never got around to buying it. However, now, with GameCube games, I think the NSO expansion pack is actually worth it. Now, this entry is not just GameCube games on NSO, it's NSO finally being worth it, but still, GameCube is the most significant console added to this service yet. These are big games, but they go for stupid amounts of money online. And yes, it's only 3 games at launch: Wind Waker, Soul Calibur 2, and F-Zero GX, or I think also Mario Strikers is going to be there too because of what we saw at Treehouse. And yes, you can emulate all these games, but most people emulate them because playing them legally will cost you hundreds of dollars. But it's not just GameCube games that are making NSO worth it as a subscription. The Switch 2 enhanced versions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are free upgrades. Maybe this will be the case with other Switch 2 upgrades, I don't know, because Nintendo did not make things clear, and more on that later, but either way, NSO is finally worth it.
What kind of pencil do we take again?
Number 2. Take a number 2.
Looks like you took a big number 2.
So this next entry really isn't anything we learned about the Switch 2, but it's more how we learn certain things, and it's just how unclear so much information is. Like I spoke earlier about the game key cards and how people don't quite seem to understand what they are, but honestly, I can't blame them because Nintendo did not make it clear. Or how the Switch 2 edition upgrades work, that wasn't made clear either. At least not entirely clear. You get Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom with an NSO subscription, but you have to spend money to upgrade other games like Mario Party, Jamboree, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I'll have more to say on that later, but why wasn't that made more clear? And then the elephant in the room. The thing that shall not be named for just a little bit longer, but even that was made unclear as people were led to believe that a certain game was a certain price, physical, and $10 less digital, when that's not the case. The game is, I'll just say it, the game is $80 across the board, which is better, but that's better in the way that getting shot 4 times is better than getting shot 5 times. You're still getting shot. Again, and I know I'm spoiling the list by saying this, but it's the least shocking spoiler like ever, but I'll talk more about the prices later. But I can't blame people for not understanding the prices because Nintendo did not make it clear. I understand not including this in the Direct because it would have ruined the Direct, let's be real, but at least put out like a press release or something instead of leaving everyone to figure it out.
Pencil do we take again?
Number 2. Take a number 2.
Looks like you took a big number 2.
The number 1 and 2 best things were honestly a toss-up, or at least it ended up being a toss-up, because usually I would have Mario Kart World at number 1 for the best, but the elephant in the room is keeping the game from that top spot. But with that out of the way, seeing what we saw from Mario Kart World is everything I could have asked for and more. We haven't gotten a new legitimate Mario Kart game in over 10 years, and looking at the footage and trailers we've gotten for World, it seems like it's well worth the wait. 24 racers at once, amazing looking tracks, grinding and wall jumping, hello? And it's an open world, you can drive pretty much anywhere on the track, and when a race is done, you just drive over to the next one? That's crazy! Not to mention the character roster. You got your usuals, but then they really dug deep. Moo Moo the cow, Sidestepper the crab, the dry bones fish, the coin coffer, the penguin, the snowman, and I don't even think that's all of them. Nintendo picked a perfect system seller for the Switch 2 at launch, and because of Mario Kart World, I think I need the Switch 2 yesterday.
I'm a Luigi, number one.
The prices. I'm not even gonna beat around the bush. It's the prices. First off, the second I noticed in the Nintendo Direct that Nintendo were just gonna skip past the price of the console, I knew something was up. I was originally expecting $400, but we ended up getting $450. That is a little disappointing, but to be fair, it's not the end of the world. It's only $50 more than what most of us expected. And I guess you can justify that with everything within the hardware. However, and I certainly alluded to this earlier, but really, in what world can you justify Mario Kart World being $80? The first $80 game. And don't tell me like games used to be $80, like no, that was a different time. People would have been up in arms if it was $70, but that's the industry norm right now. So I would have been fine with that. But raising the price to $80 when no other game company has done that, and Nintendo of all companies being the one to do it first, honestly, like, it hurts a little bit, to be honest. And it's not tariffs. I want to get that out of the way. If tariffs had an effect on the game prices, why is Donkey Kong $70? Why is Street Fighter 6 $60? It's not tariffs. It's Nintendo making a decision to price Mario Kart at $80 for some reason. But honestly, that's not even the most egregious of the prices. How come the Switch 2 enhanced version of Breath of the Wild is $70? More than the original? And how come Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Party Jamboree, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land are all $80? Kirby is $80? I loved Forgotten Land. That was a great game. But that is also a 3-year-old game for $60 that I finished in a weekend. Why is it now $80 for a graphical overhaul and a DLC? And no, physical games are not $10 more than the digital games, and no, Mario Kart is not $90. There was a lot of confusion and false information that got out, and I can't blame people because Nintendo didn't say anything, but either way, this is, if not a hype killer, at least a hype deflator. We should be talking about the games we saw and our excitement for this new era of Nintendo that we are entering, but instead, all we are talking about are the game prices, and it's all because Nintendo fumbled hard. And I didn't write this down, I wrote all this, and then we heard news about the Switch 2 pre-orders being delayed, and it is possibly because of tariffs, so there's a good chance that the console will end up being more than $450. And if that is the case, yeah, this isn't a day one.
I'm a Luigi, number one.
But okay, let's get away from the negativity. I originally had Mario Kart World at number 1 because I am more excited to play that game than this number 1. However, the $80 price tag puts a bit of a dark cloud over my excitement for that game. So with that being said, my number 1 favorite announcement, reveal, or bit of information we got for the Switch 2 is Donkey Kong Bonanza. Not only is this the first brand new Donkey Kong game in over 10 years, it's the first 3D Donkey Kong game in 25 years. So simply put, a new 3D Donkey Kong is long overdue, but this looks so cool being developed by the Mario Odyssey team. You can see that and then some, as everything just looks so crisp and detailed, the movement looks so smooth, everything being destructible is a cool touch, and I think it will add a lot to the gameplay, and I just can't wait for Donkey Kong Bonanza. And one thing I gotta give it up for is that Donkey Kong is not like a proven seller. Sure, Donkey Kong is like a gaming icon and a Nintendo mascot, but the franchise is not a system seller by any means. But to have a new 3D Donkey Kong game be the second new first-party game released for a Nintendo console, and very close, might I add, and from the Odyssey devs, that's a risk, but one I think is worth taking. And it's $70, which is how much Mario Kart should be. So that's why Donkey Kong Bonanza is my favorite thing we learned about the Switch 2. So that is my list of my favorite things we learned about the Switch 2 and my least favorite things. Look, all I can say, if you're upset about the price of either the console or the games, and this is someone who, unless they jack up the price more, I do want to buy it day one. This is coming from someone who's doing that, so I'm, you know, but you can vote with your wallets. If you really don't like this and you don't want to buy it, don't. And don't, you know, vote with your wallets. Maybe Nintendo will listen, like, they don't listen to criticism that well, but maybe they'll listen to low sales, you know what I mean? I highly doubt the Switch 2 will flop at launch. Maybe if the tariffs go through and it is priced even higher, then maybe it will struggle, and that's what I'm really hoping doesn't happen. And yeah, I'm not necessarily practicing what I'm preaching here, but still, if you take issue with the pricing here, then vote with your wallets. But anyways, what was your favorite thing, or what are your favorite things that was announced for the Switch 2? It could be a game, it can be a feature, it can be this or that, whatever. And what was your least favorite thing? Or, let's be real, your second least favorite thing. Anyways, be sure to like, subscribe, or I will overcharge you for everything.